There should be no reason why we don't win this game. But it's going to be similar to, as I've said in the past, with these Ravens type of matchups. As I said last week, this is good on good. This is good on good. So if we don't play our best, if we come out flat, if we're turning the ball over, if we're doing stupid stuff, then yeah, we could lose. We definitely could. I mean, that's any given Sunday. We lost to the freaking Browns on Thursday Night Football, right? But especially in these good on good matchups. It's a good team. It's a team that we respect. We know they're a really good offense. We know they got Lamar Jackson. We know they got Derrick Henry. I already mentioned the receivers. Good tight ends and Mark Andrew, Isaiah Likely. Offensive line is above average. Their defense, one of the best teams in stopping the run. We know their secondary has had some hiccups throughout the course of the year. They were one of the worst midseason, but they've done better, and part of that is some of the matchups. Like last week, they went against the Tommy DeVito Giants. So, like, the secondary can be had. They still got names, though, back there with Marlon Humphrey. They drafted Nate Wiggins in the first round. They got good safeties in Kyle Hamilton, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, we know what the Ravens is. We know what the Ravens are. It's, again, very similar to last week. They like to run the ball. That's their identity. And they play good defense. Physical brand of football. That's what you get whenever you play the Ravens. But we can match them with that because we're the Steelers, and that we could say the same exact thing about us. We like to run the ball. We're pretty good at running the ball. Although last couple of weeks, I will be honest, we haven't been as efficient as running the ball as we were early in the season or like midway through the season, where Najee was, I think, didn't he rattle off like 3-4 games in a row with over 100 yards? Hasn't been exactly the same, but we've still been committed to the run, and it's been effective in moments and in spurts, enough to keep us balanced on offense. But we also, again, yeah, we have a good defense. We have a top 10 defense. Really good at stopping the run. You saw what we did against Saquon Barkley last week, and we're pretty good in the pass game. I know last week wouldn't be the greatest reflection of that, but sometimes you got to tip your cap to the other team and their good players just playing good on that given Sunday. Jalen Hurts, that was his best game of the season. A.J. Brown, that was probably one of his better games of the season too. Devonta Smith, both of those receivers had over 100 yards. And it's not like we were getting cooked. It's not like Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown had this crazy separation on our quarterbacks. Hurts put the ball where it needed to be, and they made good, tough catches, and at times high-pointed the ball or, reached out to get it where our corners didn't even have a chance. It happens, man. Like, it happens. But we know the story with this matchup recently. Over the last 9 games, we're 8-1 against the Ravens. I think we've won the last 4 or 5 in a row. Lamar Jackson against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers is not really good. Just flat out not really good. And he didn't change the narrative on that in the last game from a month ago, because I think he threw for less than 50% completion, only had 200 yards, had a turnover, was outplayed by Russell Wilson. So now he's sitting at 1-4 against the Steelers. And same thing can be said about Derrick Henry. Steelers in the past against the Titans have done good against Henry. He only averaged about 60 yards against us every time he played us, and barely a touchdown per game. A month ago, his first appearance against the Steelers as a Raven, only had 60 yards. And I think he had a touchdown, right? Maybe he didn't. I can't remember. He had one big time run, and that was about it. But he had 60 total yards on the ground. That's not a King Henry type of game. That's not a Derrick Henry type of game. So our defense, we match up good against this Ravens offense. It doesn't look like the prolific Ravens offense that you see or have seen the majority of this season. They only put up 16 points against us. And that last drive, I can't say it was garbage time because, if they would have got the 2-point conversion, they would have tied up the game. But that was late in the fourth quarter. For the majority of the game, they only had 10 points against us in that first matchup. Problem is, we are dealing with some injuries, man. Deshaun Elliott, that's going to hurt. No Dante Jackson, that's going to hurt. I do like James Pierre's chances against a Rashad Bateman, though, or a Nelson Aguilar compared to Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown. I'll say that at least. And we'll be able to, at least knowing we may not have Dante Jackson, we'll be able to game plan around it and probably have Minka help over to James Pierre's side. Problem is, though, Porter Jr., I like him going up against a Bateman because Bateman, bigger physical receiver. That's JPJ style. So, like, that leaves a Zay Flowers, unless we're putting JPJ on Zay Flowers. Like, I don't like that matchup as much for him because Zay Flowers is more of a small, speedier type receiver, route runner type receiver. I mean, I think JPJ could make it work for a game if need be, but who are we putting on Zay Flowers? Because then we still got to worry about the tight end. We still got to worry about a Mark Andrews. Got to worry about the running game. So us being injured, like, that's not helping our case for sure. But we do match up well. We do have a good game plan every time we go up against Lamar Jackson-led Ravens offense. So I think we'll be able to make it work still in this game. We do have a Cam Sutton. Beanie Bishop's been playing good. So, like, there are some workarounds and how we match up against them in the secondary and in the passing game. Our front seven's been solid. I don't expect Derrick Henry to be going off against us. Same with Lamar Jackson. We're going to focus on the run game. It's going to be very similar to our approach last week. Make Lamar and his receivers beat us through the air. And if they do that, you could, I guess, tip your cap. But they were not able to do that the first matchup. Lamar was missing some wide open passes, receivers dropping the ball, just completely out of sync for almost all of that game. Whereas with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, he was on the money. So I think that's going to be our approach. Let's see what Lamar Jackson and the passing game looks like for the Ravens. And, if they are cooking, maybe we do got to adjust, but stopping the run's got to be the first priority. I will be way more mad if the Ravens get 200, 250 on the ground with Lamar and Derrick Henry as opposed to Lamar beating us through the air and going off for 300 yards and throwing dimes to Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. That's how I would look at it. And then for our offense, man, like, we just got to get through it without Pickens. We just got to play our game, and we should be able to still have some good matchups through the air, even without Pickens. I like Mike Williams on a Marlon Humphrey, Mike Williams on a Nate Wiggins. Russ could throw up a moon ball to him and come down with it. I like Calvin Austin, though. Watch for him working in the slot, because I don't really know anyone in that Ravens secondary that's going to be able to match Calvin Austin's speed and Calvin Austin's separation. So that could be a guy that Russell Wilson leans on and has been leaning on the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I kind of like Calvin Austin to have another one of those games. Maybe it's just 50, 60 yards. Does he get a touchdown? But he's going to have impact. We got to stick with running the ball. We got to stay balanced. Try to help keep our defense off the field. But it's going to be interesting without Pickens and how we play this. It definitely will be, because we do want to stay balanced with the run game, and they still got pieces in the secondary. Because I was going to mention, who's going to be covering Muth. They do got a Kyle Hamilton. They do got a Roquan Smith. Now, I like the Muth matchup against Roquan Smith in the passing game. We're just going to have to grit it out on the road. Russell Wilson is going to have to do Russell Wilson stuff in the second half. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that last game because we punted on 4th and 7 and Najee fumbled the ball. But sometimes it's just one of those things when your quarterback's got it, like Mahomes, over the last, not only this year, but a couple years. Doesn't really have all the offensive pieces around him. Some guys are inconsistent, but the dude just makes it work. That's what I'm counting on. I'm counting on Russell Wilson doing elite type of stuff, doing Russell Wilson type of stuff in a big game to clinch the division. I'm counting on that. Maybe we do get off to a slow start with the offense, but you know what the second half is for Russ. It's let Russ cook time. I'm counting on that. I'm counting on Boswell being the more effective, being the more, consistent kicker that you could rely on than Justin Tucker. Who would have thought we'd be saying this in 2024 like that? But Chris Boswell is the best kicker in the league right now, and Justin Tucker's been missing critical kicks and has been losing games for the Ravens this year. And then in terms of turnovers and splash plays, I still like us. We did it last week against the Eagles. We won the turnover battle, but we didn't capitalize like I thought we would. But that's something we do week in and week out. We get turnovers. And every time Lamar and this Ravens offense in recent years has played the Steelers, they turn the ball over. And what did I say last week? When it comes to these good on good matchups, when it comes to these big time playoff games, these playoff type matchups, comes down to quarterback play, comes down to special teams and kickers, who's going to make the clutch kicks, and it comes down to turnovers. And I like us again in all those categories. Unfortunately, last week we didn't really prove me right. we didn't help make my case right there because Jalen Hurts outplayed Russell Wilson. I guess Boswell made all of his field goals, but we had the penalty and the special team and in the field goal block, and then the turnovers. We didn't capitalize on them. We had more turnovers, but then we had the critical turnover that probably counted more like 2 or 3 turnovers there with the Najee fumble. So even though we won the turnover battle, we didn't capitalize on them, and then we had the really bad one that happened in the second half in winning time. So yeah, it happens. But that hasn't really happened for us on a consistent basis throughout the course of this year. So I'm saying we turn it around and we get back to playing good at the quarterback position, outplaying the other team's quarterbacks, winning the turnover battle, and Boswell on our special teams being better than the other team's special teams. And that's going to be critical for this win for the Steelers. I got us winning. I got us. It's going to be, I assume it's going to be ugly weather. You know, we're getting late in December. Saturday night type of game. I know it's not night, but it's, 4 o'clock. It's going to be like 23. It's going to be, 23-20. Isn't that what I predicted last week for us to win 23-20 against the Eagles? So now it happens this week. I was off for 1 week. Steelers get it done 23-20 this one.